Hi, I'm Jill from H4RL. Our family loves to play games, and especially games that we can include in our school day because we're learning something. So we review a lot of educational games on this channel. Make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss any of our videos. Today I'm going to be talking about Ecologies, which is a science card game focusing on ecosystems in the natural world. There are actually 3 versions of this game. All 3 versions of the game play the same way. They just include different habitats in the game. So the basic Ecologies version of this game has tundra, marine, coniferous forest, temperate forest, tropical forest, grassland, and desert. The one I'll be showing you today is hidden habitats. That has the Antarctic, hydrothermal vents, coral reefs, intertidal, tropical island, salt marsh, and cloud forest. And then bizarre biomes is the other version they offer, which has caves, an urban environment, chaparral, riparian, vernal pool, swamp, and mangrove. And you can combine the different versions. However, you don't want to have too many different habitats going on in the same game. It's too many cards and the game takes too long. And so they suggest that you just pick and choose a certain number of habitats. I think they suggest 7. And so you narrow it down. And so it does give you some choice as to which habitats you include, but it's not like you can play with all of them at once. So you can keep that in mind when you're deciding how many versions of the game you want and which one your family would like to play. One thing I really like about this game is the cards have beautiful artwork on them. So hopefully you can see this clearly. They're drawings that are on the cards, but they're really detailed, and then they give accurate science as to what this animal eats and what it is eaten by. So I really appreciate the cards that they've included. In this game, you're basically collecting cards and using them to build healthy ecosystems or healthy ecologies. And so that's looking at the various trophic levels where you've got your producers, primary consumers, secondary consumers, scavengers and decomposers, all interconnected to balance out a healthy ecosystem. So let's look closer at how the game is played. Ecologies comes with this tiny little rule book to help you understand how to play the game. And it's a pretty thorough explanation and fairly easy to understand, although you can see there is actually a decent amount of reading to completely understand the whole thing. It really isn't a very complicated game once you get to know how to play. So let's talk about how that works. If you happen to be listening to this and you'd like to see what I'm talking about, this game review is going to be on YouTube, so you can find it there, H4RL, Homeschool for Real Life, and see the game components I'm talking about. So there are 3 different types of cards in this game. One is biotic and abiotic factors, biotic having to do with living things, abiotic with not living, and these are cards that are going to affect gameplay. For example, symbiosis, when you play this in front of you, you may now play organism cards upside down and on opponent webs. So they give you some extra things going on in the game. There are your biome cards, which is how you have to start laying cards down in front of you. You cannot start laying cards down until you have a biome to put them in. So this is the tropical island biome. And then there are also the producer and consumer and scavenger cards that are what you're going to be laying in your biome. So once you have a biome down, you need to lay a producer, and this one is marked with a P to designate it's a producer. So it would go in the first row above my biome. Now I could not actually lay this here because, as you see, this is an INT. That indicates that this card can only be played in the intertidal biome, and right now I have the tropical island biome. So I can save this card and play it when I have this biome, or we'll talk about some other options we can do with that. But producers go in the next row, so assuming I could lay it in the tropical island biome, it would be going right there. And then this is an example. Sometimes cards can be played in more than one trophic level. So this has a P and a C1 to C2. So this could be played in the producer level. It could also be played as a primary consumer or even up in the next level as a secondary consumer. Anything can be laid in the producer level as long as it matches the biome. But in order to be laid as a primary consumer, when I look at what it eats, I have to have something that it eats in the level below it. And then once I find out what it's eaten by, that's what I can put in the level above it. So if it doesn't eat one of the things I have as a producer, I can't put it in that C1 level, primary consumer, until I've got something that matches. But let's say I did. This would go right here. This is another one of those that can go into multiple trophic levels. This one can actually go in a lot of different places. And this one actually has the ISL designation, so it could go in my tropical island biome. This is an example of a card where I have a choice. I could also put it in the intertidal biome with this sea lettuce. So provided that I have something it's eating, I can put it at that C1 or even C2 level. But this one also can go as a scavenger decomposer. And so these are always laid in that primary consumer row. So as long as I have something here that it's eating, I can go ahead and lay it there. And this one actually does eat sea lettuce, so I could put it as a scavenger decomposer above this producer, or I can count it as a primary consumer. And it's just going to depend on what other cards I have to fill in those roles, because my goal is to build a healthy ecology. And let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so here are two examples of healthy ecologies that you could build. This one's in an intertidal biome, this one in a coral reef biome. So you can see in both cases I have the biome. I had to have that before I could lay anything. Then the next thing that I'm going to be laying is a producer in each of those biomes. I don't have to lay in both at once. I can build one out and then the other, but the next level needed is a producer. And in this case, I have two producers, which is a really good idea because there's an element of the game where people can take out, other players can remove some of your cards. And let's say I had this whole ecology built here and someone destroyed this producer, I lose everything above it if there's nothing else for it to stand on, right? So having two producers is a great idea. Then I start building up from there. I have a primary consumer in each of these that eats something below. You can see with the marrow plankton, it eats kelp and sea lettuce. So it has two reasons for being right here. The sea fan, it's a producer, so it eats sunlight and some other things as well because it has other places to be. The damselfish eats the sea fan, so does the camel shrimp. So these can both be in my next level. Now notice I have two cards in the second level on both of these. So here's my producers. Then I have my primary consumer and my scavenger detritivore, right? So they have to be in the same row as the C1, and both of those have to be present in order for this to be a healthy ecology. I have to have a primary consumer and a scavenger decomposer detritivore. Okay. Then I have to have a secondary consumer, so the nudibranch eats the marrow plankton, so it can be in this next level up. And then my tertiary consumer, the horseshoe crab, eats the nudibranch, so it is above that one. 1, 2, 3, 4 levels of the intertidal biome, having both the primary consumer and the SD card here in this level. This is a healthy ecology, which means I get the healthy ecology bonus for this biome. Each biome is different. This one, the healthy ecology bonus, each time an opponent selects one of my organisms to destroy, I can search the discard pile for one card. So hopefully I can find something to replace it. Over here, coral reef biome, same thing. I have a producer, a primary consumer, an SD card. I have two secondary consumers in this case, and I have a tertiary consumer because the octopus will eat the wrasse. So this is a healthy ecology. Its bonus is that I can draw 2 extra cards each turn. And opponents also get to draw one extra card on their turn. So it kind of benefits everybody, but me a little more than everyone else. So let's talk real quick about some of the general rules for how to play. Each player is going to start with 7 cards in their hand, and on your turn, you always draw 2 cards. Then you can trade if you want to. You can offer to trade cards with another player, and there's no limit on how much trading you can do. You don't have to trade if you don't want to. You can only trade cards that are in your hand, though. I can't trade something that's already on the table with someone else. Next, I'm going to play 2 cards. And anytime I lay a card down to use it, that counts as a play. So if I were laying the octopus, that counts as laying 1. And let's say I lay one of these biotic or abiotic factors, that would count as 1 lay as well. And so you get 2 lays per turn, 2 plays. And then finally, if you want to purchase cards, you can. So let's say I'm collecting cards in my hand that I just don't really have a use for. Maybe I don't have that biome, but I have cards for it. I haven't been able to trade them. If I collect 4 cards at this point in my turn, I can trade those in to draw an extra card. So every turn has that same pattern: draw 2, trade, play 2, purchase. The exceptions to that are if I have, an ecology bonus that allows me to draw extra cards or something like that. So I can rearrange my cards as needed. If I have something that I need to shift the level, I can just do that. There aren't any rules about when that can happen, really. And the goal in this game, if you can see, each card has a point value on it. Your goal is to get to 12 points. The first player to 12 points is the winner. And there's a simplified version of this game for younger players. So remember, they recommend age 12 up for the regular game. They say age 8 and up if you just make every card worth 1 point. So you don't worry about these quarter points or half points. Everything's just worth 1 point. Now the biomes are not worth anything themselves. They just provide you a habitat to build within. And as far as the ages playing the game, 8 is probably a pretty good guide for playing the game. But all the cards tell you what they eat and who they're eaten by. So as long as they can kind of pay attention to these designations and understand how to build out their habitat, they could play if they can read the cards. Plus, it's actually pretty engaging because these drawings are so detailed. They really draw you in. There is an aggressive element to this game. Some of these abiotic and biotic factor cards in particular, pollution allows you to destroy an organism that someone else had. Like we talked about, you could take out someone's producer. Pollination gives you extra points for each one of your cards, helps you get to be the winner faster. Biodiversity protects you from anything that uses the word destroy, so basically attacks by other player. Pheromones, you can search the discard pile for 3 cards from the same biome, so that would be a really great bonus for how to start building. Shelter, if an opponent targets you with a card or bonus, you can prevent the action and discard this card along with theirs. We already looked at symbiosis. Okay, so there are ways in which opponents can attack you and take out your cards. Some of the ecology bonuses allow you to do that, right? Like we looked at here. So my family doesn't really enjoy that. We find that frustrating. So we just make some little adaptations. Like you could pull out the cards that you don't want to use if you want to. You also can just collect them and use them to purchase cards, so you don't actually have to play them. Also, with these healthy ecology bonuses, there are some that we really want, others we don't really like, and so sometimes we play where you can choose the ecology bonus you want for your healthy ecology. You don't have to go with what's written on here. So I can say, okay, this healthy ecology, I'm going to use this bonus. We use bonuses that do exist in the game, they just might not be for that biome. Oh, here's an example of how you might attack. The hydrothermal vent biome, which is volcanic deep sea habitats. If you have this one, you get a healthy ecology. You can destroy an organism owned by someone else who has 8 or more points every other turn. So you could really wreak havoc in the game. So for some people, that makes it a lot more fun, and that gamey element is included here. But just our family, we don't like to do that. We like to just happily build our ecologies. There is a single player version of this game where you would just play until the deck runs out and aim for the highest score you can get. And so you're competing with yourself from other games you've played. My daughter in particular and I really enjoy this game. We like all of the detailed, beautiful artwork, and we enjoy trying to collect and build out these ecosystems and collecting the ones that are our favorites. We just enjoy looking at it. So it's a very engaging, involving game, and it's not, like I said, too challenging. It isn't really too mentally straining, but you do learn a lot from the game. You might be surprised by who eats what and how they relate within these ecosystems, and it gets you thinking about the different levels and how everything falls apart when certain things disappear. And so it shows how important these different elements are within various ecosystems. It also helps you learn what animals live in different types of habitats, especially if you get one of these games that has some that you might not be familiar with. So it's very tempting to me. We so far only own this Hidden Habitats version of the game. It's very tempting to me to get the other two because I would like to see the cards and see the artwork and what lives where. But so far we only have this one, and it's been enough fun for us. So I really do think it has great educational value, and it's also just fun. It's one of those that's really nice to play on a rainy afternoon or something and just kind of immerse yourself in these habitats. This is a game that I really appreciate. I would recommend it from Montrose Games. Let me know in the comments what you think. Thank you for joining me to talk about Ecologies, a science card game. The game is recommended for 1 to 6 players, ages 12 plus, or if you play the simplified version, ages 8 plus. It does take a while to play, so sometimes we've even walked away and come back to this game, partly just because we enjoy filling out our ecosystems and seeing all the cards all over the table. So we kind of like to make it take a long time. Thank you so much for joining me, and please be sure to subscribe so you don't miss hearing about other educational games.